Welcome back to the railroad, the HO Scale Union Pacific Railroad Evanston subdivision. This video is a special review of the Details Plus crossing gates and signals for grade crossings. Got these a couple weeks ago from Logic Rail Tech. Also got their controllers and wanted to do a review. I've already installed a Tomar crossing signals and gates and ran across these from Details Plus and wanted to do a review and tell you what I thought about the signals and the crossing gates and everything and how they compare to Tomar. So here's the package that they come into. You just get a very brief description of it. One thing that's different is that the wiring is a bit different. The Tomar had 4 wires for each of the 4 lights on the signals. These had only 2, which made it a lot easier to wire. Get decals for the little 3 tracks placard there. This is what they look like. These are very, very nice, especially for the price. I'm not really sure what material they're made of. I have a sneaky feeling that they are a 3D printing version. You can tell just a little bit of roughness in the surface, but generally speaking, if you're not got your eyeballs up close to it, you really can't tell that they're 3D printed. They may not be too. I might be corrected on that, but I just kind of looking at when the weight of them, the density of them is very light, which is typical of 3D printed. But they look very nice. I mean, they've come a long way. Here's a comparison to the Tomar. These are brass. So you can definitely, if you put the 2 close next to each other, you could tell a difference as far as the graininess. And these are much more clean looking. The Tomar have a little bit longer gates also. So if you're doing a modern or a wide road, they have to take that into consideration. But the Details Plus are very nice in appearance and very much to scale. A little bit better as far as having bulbs too. Here's the rest of the stuff that I had to have. That's a Servo kit. This is my first experience with servos, and of course just a cheap speaker. It's only $6. Sounds very good though. So I did get a couple servos, the bell module, the controller from Logic Rail Tech. Here's what the servo looks like. Nice thing about the servo is it just plugs directly into the control board. So it makes wiring a snap. And there is a somewhat complicated procedure that you have to go through on the board. Here's the board itself. And you have 2 of the blue connectors for different things. You have dip switches. Those are for adjusting I think that's for the photo cells. I'm using the infrared, so didn't use that. So here you can see where you hook up the speakers and the motors. That's didn't use that either because of the servo plugs. You can see the servo plugs. You just have 2 plugs. Then you have the servo configuration. And then the long blue connectors are for the power, to power it up. And then for the signal lights themselves. And then also for the sensor. So you have WF is west far, I'm thinking. West near, WNEN is east near, and EF is east far. So those are the ones I use for the infrared sensors. And then you have the power for the board, and then you have the connecting up the signal lights themselves. All right, so getting these installed was a bit of a, it's definitely takes some skill in getting these to be connected properly and to get them to work. But if I had to do it over, so they have a little guide here for where the wire is supposed to go to connect from the signals to the servo. And I think once you then use that guide, you can cut that clear plastic part off. But it definitely is a good way of, making sure that you get the hole drilled for the servo wire in the right spot. So you actually drill two holes. You drill one hole for the wires for the lights, and then another hole for the servo wire for connecting up the servo. Here's a diagram that they give you on how it's supposed to be lined up. And again, there's a somewhat complicated procedure for configuring the servo and then getting the wire connected up properly. Here's a look at it underneath. Now, this is not the final setup. I actually have the wire not connected to the servo arm correctly. It actually goes on the very last hole, and that's not really lined up correctly, but that just kind of shows you how you have the two holes for the wires and the servo wire, and then once you have it, so one thing, I was a little concerned at first when I did this because with it being a 3D printed, does not have the strength, and so when you go to the end, it actually will move the whole signal back and forth. But it actually turned out pretty good. Once you go through the configuration process, you're not doing it with your finger. You can make sure it stops at exactly the right spot so it doesn't push the whole signal one way or the other. Here's the emitters and sensors. The white and black wire ones are the emitters. This is a look at the sensors. They come this way. He knew I was doing over the rail, so he went ahead and bent them 90 degrees, which worked out very nice. These are the emitters. The other ones were the detectors. And one thing I did before I started getting these is kind of measured out the amount of wire I would need for each. So the ones, the west far here, I put about 70. This is at 60 here. I went a little bit back from there. So I put it about 70 inches. And then the ones closer in, I put about maybe 10 to 12 inches away from the grade. And so it takes two sets of wires for each sensing, because you have emitters and detectors for each. Okay, so I laid it all out. And then once I had it all laid out, then I connected up all of the wires to the control board. And then I connected the wires to the different sensors and tested each one and made sure it was working correctly and so forth. I also, as you can see here, I put them at a diagonal across the rail. That's so that you don't get any, it won't sense, well, as the train goes by, you don't want it to sense when there's a gap between cars. So you kind of put it at a diagonal. Here's the grade crossing itself. I have both of them installed and working. And then you have, this is the east near. Put them, this one I put close to here because I kind of figured it would look natural there. Always have to be thinking about how you're going to hide them once you get them all working. This is the east far. I put them, two of them, I put them close to the cables. I thought that would be a good way to hide them also. Worked out pretty good. All right, here I got all connected up and working. One thing, by the way, too, this has the modern bell on it, which looks very nice. One nice thing about it too is the lenses. It has lenses for the lights, not bulbs. The Tomar has bulbs. These look definitely much better for a modern, but I was looking at some vintage crossing lights. They even are pretty flat too. So the bulbs are not the best. I'm not sure if the newer Tomar has LEDs. They probably do. I'm not sure. But here's how they work, how they look. I just put my hand there in front of it. Now you really can't tell from the video because I don't hold it perfectly straight, but the Servo is nice and slow and everything, but it has just a very slight vibration to it. I don't understand servos that much, but I think they have like different steps. And so it just has a little bit of a vibration as it goes through the motion on the different steps. And you can see also the wire is much more visible on these when they are down. When they're up, you really can't see the wire, or it's definitely not very obvious. But overall, the operation is very, very smooth. I think, and you notice there isn't any bending, pushing of the whole signal one way or the other as the trains go by. And these are not very expensive. They're only $72 for the set. So you get two crossing signals with gates for $72, which I thought was very, very good. And I'll kind of run through the prices here towards the end, or in just a bit. But definitely looks good with the train going by. All right, I went ahead and camouflage the emitters and sensors as best I could. One thing you can do easily is just put some vegetation around it. Another way is to put electrical box there, and then here's some more vegetation. The thing about the vegetation, you got to put other piles around too. If you just have this one pile sticking there, this one kind of looks hidden well because it's not only vegetation, but it's near the telephone pole. And this one there, I just painted it silver, so that it looks like it's kind of part of the electrical components of that signal bridge. Here's another electrical box that hides it, and then some more vegetation next to the telephone pole. Here's a show you about how I cut out the electrical box. Here's a price breakdown. The Details Plus with Logic Rail Tech. The complete cost was $181, almost $182. The signals, gates, and the signals with crossing gates is $72. And then all the other things that comes at $181. Other options out there, Model Train Technologies, $380. That was really expensive because it had it is plug and play, which makes it probably maybe one of the easiest ones to install. But that's pretty up there in price, and then that doesn't include the sensors. So those are pretty expensive. If you went the route of Tomar with Logic Rail, that comes out to $325. So the price of the crossing gates and motor is $339.99, compared to only less than $100 for the Details Plus. So definitely, the Details Plus is definitely the cheapest way to go compared to other options out there. And of course, there may be some I'm missing. Walthers makes some pretty inexpensive crossing signals, but I don't think they make any with the gates, at least none that I have seen. These, as I said, are very nice. Here, take a look at some trains going through. Definitely makes this whole area of Granger much more prototypical looking, and definitely makes it a lot of fun to run trains. I will definitely be using these again for my third crossing, which will be at Echo. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's been not only enjoyable but informative. Definitely recommend the Details Plus and, of course, Logic Rail Tech for this type of application. And it does take a little bit more work, but I think you end up with some pretty cool looking signals and crossing gates for not that much money. Have a great weekend coming up. Take care, everybody.